January 15, 1981, our research group started receiving a communication from the social memory complex, RA. From this communication precipitated the Law of One and some of the distortions of the Law of One. The pages of this book contain an exact transcript, edited only to remove some personal material, of the communications received in sessions 51 through 75 with RA. This material presupposes a point of view which we have developed in the course of many years' study of the UFO phenomenon. If you are not familiar with our previous work, a reading of our book, Secrets of the UFO, might prove helpful in understanding the present material. Also, as you can see from this book's title, there are 50 previous sessions with RA which were collected in the Law of One in Book 2 of the Law of One. If at all possible, it is good to begin with the beginning with this material, as concepts build upon previous concepts. The RA contact continued for 106 sessions which were printed into 4 books in the Law of One series. They are available at your local bookstore or from us. If you wish to receive our quarterly newsletter, in which the best of our current channeling is published, please request that you be put on our mailing list. Book 3 of the Law of One is an intensive study of the techniques of balancing of the energy centers and efficient polarization as our planet makes ready for harvest into 4th density. The nature of time/space and space/time are examined, and some of the ramifications of meditation and magic are discussed. A good deal of material about psychic attack and the Orion group is included, and the volume ends with a beginning glance into the archetypical mind. L/L Research, Louisville, Kentucky, March 17, 1982. The Law of One, Book 3, Session 51. May 13, 1981. RA, I am RA. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, as we begin Book 3 of the Law of One, there are a couple of questions of fairly non-transient importance that I have, and one that I consider to be of a transient nature that I feel obligated to ask. The first is clearing up the final point about harvest. I was wondering if there is a supervision over the harvest, and if so, why this supervision is necessary and how it works, since an entity's harvestability is determined by the violet ray. Is it necessary for entities to supervise the harvest, or is it automatic? RA, I am RA. In time of harvest there are always harvesters. The fruit is formed as it will be, but there is some supervision necessary to ensure that this bounty is placed as it should be without the bruise or the blemish. There are those of 3 levels watching over harvest. The first level is planetary, and that which may be called angelic. This type of guardian includes the mind/body/spirit complex totality or higher self of an entity, and those inner plane entities which have been attracted to this entity through its inner seeking. The second class of those who ward this process are those of the Confederation, who have the honor/duty of standing in the small places at the edge of the steps of light/love, so that those entities being harvested will not, no matter how confused or unable to make contact with their higher self, stumble and fall away for any reason other than the strength of the light. These Confederation entities catch those who stumble and set them aright so that they may continue into the light. The third group watching over this process is that group you call the Guardians. This group is from the octave above our own and serves in this manner as light bringers. These guardians provide the precise emissions of light/love and exquisitely fastidious disseminations of discrimination, so that the precise light/love vibration of each entity may be ascertained. Thus the harvest is automatic, in that those harvested will respond according to that which is unchangeable during harvest. That is the violet ray emanation. However, these helpers are around to ensure a proper harvesting, so that each entity may have the fullest opportunity to express its violet ray selfhood. Questioner, this next question I feel to be a transient type of question. However, it has been asked me by one whom I have communicated with, who has been involved intensely in the UFO portion of the phenomenon. If you deem it too transient or unimportant, we'll skip it, but I have been asked how it is possible for the craft of the 4th density to get here, since it seems that as you approach the velocity of light, the mass approaches infinity. My question would be why craft would be necessary at all. RA, I am RA. You have asked several questions. We shall respond in turn. Firstly, we agree that this material is transient. Secondly, those for the most part coming from distant points, as you term them, do not need craft as you know them. The query itself requires understanding which you do not possess. We shall attempt to state what may be stated. Firstly, there are a few 3rd density entities who have learned how to use craft to travel between star systems while experiencing the limitations you now understand. However, such entities have learned to use hydrogen in a way different from your understanding now. These entities still take quite long durations of time, as you measure it, to move about. However, these entities are able to use hypothermia to slow the physical and mental complex processes in order to withstand the duration of flight. Those such as are from Sirius are of this type. There are two other types. One is the type which, coming from 4th, 5th, or 6th density in your own galaxy, has access to a type of energy system which uses the speed of light as a slingshot and thus arrives where it wishes without any perceptible time elapsed in your view. The other type of experience is that of 4th, 5th, and 6th densities of other galaxies and some within your own galaxy which have learned the necessary disciplines of personality to view the universe as one being and, therefore, are able to proceed from locus to locus by thought alone, materializing the necessary craft, if you will, to enclose the light body of the entity. Questioner, I assume that latter type is the type we experience with the landings of the Orion group. Is this correct? RA, IMRA. The Orion group is mixed between the penultimate and the latter groups. Questioner, why is a vehicle necessary for this transition? When you, as RA, went to Egypt earlier you used bell-shaped craft, but you did this by thought. Can you tell me why you used a vehicle rather than just materializing the body? RA, IMRA. The vehicle or craft is that thought form upon which our concentration may function as motivator. We would not choose to use our mind/body/spirit complexes as the focus for such a working. Questioner, thank you. It seems to me, and you can tell me where I am going wrong with this statement, that we have 7 bodies each corresponding to one of the 7 colors of the spectrum and that energy that creates these 7 bodies is a universal type of energy that streams into our planetary environment and comes in through the 7 energy centers that we have called chakras to develop and perfect these bodies. Each of these bodies is somehow related to the mental configuration that we have, and the perfection of these bodies and the total in-streaming of this energy is a function of this mental configuration, and through this mental configuration we may block, to some extent, the in-streamings of energy that created these 7 bodies. Could you comment on where I am wrong and correct that which I have stated? RA, IMRA. Your statement is substantially correct. To use the term mental configuration is to oversimplify the manners of blockage of in-streaming which occur in your density. The mind complex has a relationship to the spirit and body complexes which is not fixed. Thus blockages may occur betwixt spirit and mind, or body and mind, upon many different levels. We reiterate that each energy center has 7 subcolors, let us say, for convenience. Thus spiritual/mental blockages combined with mental/bodily blockages may affect each of the energy centers in several differing ways. Thus you may see the subtle nature of the balancing and evolutionary process. Questioner, I am unsure as to whether this will provide an avenue of questioning that will be fruitful, but I will ask this question since it seems to me that there is a connection here. On the back of the book, Secrets of the Great Pyramid, there are several reproductions of Egyptian drawings or works, some showing birds flying over horizontal entities. Could you tell me what this is and if it has any relationship to RA? RA, IMRA. These drawings of which you speak are some of many which distort the teaching of our perception of death as the gateway to further experience. The distortions concern those considerations of specific nature, as to processes of the so-called dead mind/body/spirit complex. This may be termed, in your philosophy, the distortion of Gnosticism, that is, the belief that one may achieve knowledge in a proper position by means of carefully perceived and accentuated movements, concepts, and symbols. In fact, the process of the physical death is as we have described before, one in which there is aid available and the only needed death is the releasing of that entity from its body by those around it and the praising of the process by those who grieve. By these means may the mind/body/spirit which has experienced physical death be aided, not by the various perceptions of careful and repeated rituals. Questioner, you spoke at an earlier time of rotational speeds of energy centers. Am I correct in assuming that this is a function of the blockage of the energy center so that when it is less blocked, the speed of rotation is higher and the energy in streaming is greater? RA, IMRA. You are partially correct. In the first 3 energy centers, a full unblocking of this energy will create speeds of rotation. As the entity develops the higher energy centers, however, these centers will then begin to express their nature by forming crystal structures. This is the higher or more balanced form of activation of energy centers as the space/time nature of this energy is transmuted to the time/space nature of regularization and balance. Questioner, what do you mean by crystal structures? RA, IMRA. Each of the energy centers of the physical complex may be seen to have a distinctive crystalline structure in the more developed entity. Each will be somewhat different, just as in your world no 2 snowflakes are alike. However, each is regular. The red energy center often is in the shape of the spoked wheel. The orange energy center in the flower shape containing 3 petals. The yellow center again in a rounded shape, many-faceted, as a star. The green energy center, sometimes called the lotus shape. the number of points of crystalline structure dependent upon the strength of this center. The blue energy center capable of having perhaps 100 facets and capable of great flashing brilliance. The indigo center, a more quiet center which has the basic triangular or three-petal shape in many, although some adepts who have balanced the lower energies may create more faceted forms. The violet energy center is the least variable and is sometimes described in your philosophy as thousand-petaled, as it is the sum of the mind/body/spirit complex distortion totality. Questioner, right now I feel a feeling at the indigo center. If this center were totally activated and not blocked at all, would I then feel nothing there? RA, I am RA. This query, if answered, would infringe upon the law of confusion. Questioner, immediately after the death of the physical body you have stated that the primary activated body is the indigo, and you stated that it is the formaker. Why is this so? RA, I am RA. This will be the last full query of this session of working. The indigo body may be seen to be an analog for intelligent energy. It is, in microcosm, the logos. The intelligent energy of the mind/body/spirit complex totality draws its existence from intelligent infinity or the creator. This creator is to be understood, both in macrocosm and microcosm, to have, as we have said, two natures, the unpotentiated infinity which is intelligent, this is all that there is. Free will has potentiated, both the creator of us all and ourselves as co-creators with intelligent infinity which has will. This will may be drawn upon by the indigo or formaking body and its wisdom used to then choose the appropriate locus and type of experience which this co-creator or sub-logos you call so carelessly a person will take. I am RA. This is the time for any brief queries. Questioner, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? RA, I am RA. All is well. You are conscientious. I leave you now, my brothers, in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai. The Law of One, Book 3, Session 52. May 19, 1981. RA, I am RA. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner, in the previous session you stated, the other type of experience is the fourth, fifth, and sixth densities of other galaxies and some within your own galaxy which have learned necessary disciplines of personality to view the universe as one being are able to proceed from locus to locus by thought alone, materializing the necessary craft. I would like to ask you, when you say fourth, fifth, and sixth densities of other galaxies, some within your own galaxy, are you stating here that more of the entities in other galaxies have developed the abilities of personality than have those in this galaxy for this type of travel? I am using the term galaxy with respect to the lenticular shape of billions of stars. RA, I am RA. We have once again used a meaning for this term, galaxy, that does not lie within your vocabulary at this time, if you will call it so. We referred to your star system. It is incorrect to assume that other star systems are more able to manipulate the dimensions than your own. It is merely that there are many other systems besides your own. Questioner, thank you. I think that possibly I am on an important point here because it seems to me that the great work in evolution is the discipline of personality, and it seems that we have two types of entities moving around the universe, one stemming from disciplines of personality, and the other stemming from what you call the slingshot effect. I won't even get into the sublight speeds because I don't consider that too important. I only consider this material important because of the fact that we are considering disciplines of the personality. Is the use of the slingshot effect for travel what you might call an intellectual or a left brain type of involvement of understanding rather than a right brain type? RA, I am RA. Your perception on this point is extensive. You penetrate the outer teaching. We prefer not to utilize the terminology of right and left brain due to the inaccuracies of this terminology. Some functions are repetitive or redundant in both lobes, and further, to some entities the functions of the right and left are reversed. However, the heart of the query is worth some consideration. The technology of which you, as a social complex, are so enamored at this time is but the birthing of the manipulation of the intelligent energy of the sublogos which, when carried much further, may evolve into technology capable of using the gravitic effects of which we spoke. We note that this term is not accurate, but there is no closer term. Therefore, the use of technology to manipulate that outside the self is far less of an aid to personal evolution than the disciplines of the mind/body/spirit complex resulting in the whole knowledge of the self in the microcosm and macrocosm. To the disciplined entity, all things are open and free. The discipline which opens the universes opens also the gateways to evolution. The difference is that of choosing either to hitchhike to a place where beauty may be seen or to walk, step by step, independent and free in this independence to praise the strength to walk and the opportunity for the awareness of beauty. The hitchhiker, instead, is distracted by conversation and the vagaries of the road and, dependent upon the whims of others, is concerned to make the appointment in time. The hitchhiker sees the same beauty but has not prepared itself for the establishment, in the roots of mind, of the experience. Questioner: I would ask this question in order to understand the mental disciplines and how they evolve. Does fourth, fifth, and sixth density positive or service to others orientation of social memory complexes use both the slingshot and the personality disciplines type of effect for travel, or do they use only one? IMRA. The positively oriented social memory complex will be attempting to learn the disciplines of mind, body, and spirit. However, there are some which, having the technology available to use intelligent energy forces to accomplish travel, do so while learning the more appropriate disciplines. Questioner: then I am assuming that in the more positively oriented social memory complexes a much higher percentage of them use the personality disciplines for this travel. Is this correct? IMRA. This is correct. As positive fifth density moves into sixth, there are virtually no entities which any longer use outer technology for travel or communication. Questioner: could you give me the same information on the negatively oriented social memory complexes as to the ratios and as to how they use the slingshot effect or the disciplines of the personality for travel? IMRA. The fourth density negative uses the slingshot gravitic light effect, perhaps 80% of its membership being unable to master the disciplines necessary for alternate methods of travel. In fifth density negative, approximately 50% at some point gain the necessary discipline to use thought to accomplish travel. As the sixth density approaches, the negative orientation is thrown into confusion and little travel is attempted. What travel is done is perhaps 73% of light/thought. Questioner: is there any difference close to the end of fifth density in the disciplines of personality between positive and negative orientation? IMRA. There are patent differences between the polarities but no difference whatsoever in the completion of the knowledge of the self necessary to accomplish this discipline. Questioner: am I correct, then, in assuming that discipline of the personality, knowledge of self, and control and strengthening of the will would be what any fifth density entity would see as those things of importance? IMRA. In actuality, these things are of importance in third through early seventh densities. The only correction and nuance that we would make is your use of the word control. It is paramount that it be understood that it is not desirable or helpful to the growth of the understanding, may we say, of an entity by itself to control thought processes or impulses except where they may result in actions not consonant with the law of one. Control may seem to be a shortcut to discipline, peace, and illumination. However, this very control potentiates and necessitates the further incarnative experience in order to balance this control or repression of that self which is perfect. Instead, we appreciate and recommend the use of your second verb in regard to the use of the will. Acceptance of self, forgiveness of self, and the direction of the will, this is the path towards the disciplined personality. Your faculty of will is that which is powerful within you as co-creator. You cannot ascribe to this faculty too much importance. Thus it must be carefully used and directed in service to others for those upon the positively oriented path. There is great danger in the use of the will as the personality becomes stronger, for it may be used even subconsciously in ways reducing the polarity of the entity. Questioner: I sense, possibly, a connection between what you just said and why so many wanderers have selected the harvest time on this planet to incarnate. Am I correct? IMRA. It is correct that in the chance to remember that which has been lost in the forgetting there is an immense of opportunity for positive polarization. We believe this is the specific thrust of your query. Please ask further if it is not. Questioner: I would just include the question as to why the time of harvest is selected by so many wanderers as time for incarnation? IMRA. There are several reasons for incarnation during harvest. They may be divided by the terms self and other self. The overriding reason for the offering of these brothers and sisters of sorrow in incarnative states is the possibility of aiding other selves by the lightening of the planetary consciousness distortions and the probability of offering catalyst to other selves which will increase the harvest. There are two other reasons for choosing this service which have to do with the self. The wanderer, if it remembers and dedicates itself to service, will polarize much more rapidly than is possible in the far more etiolated realms of higher density catalyst. The final reason is within the mind/body/spirit totality, where the social memory complex totality which may judge that an entity or members of a societal entity can make use of third density catalyst to recapitulate a learning/teaching which is adjudged to be less than perfect. This especially applies to those entering into and proceeding through sixth density wherein the balance between compassion and wisdom is perfected. Questioner, thank you. Just as something that I am a little inquisitive about, but which is not of much importance, I would like to make a statement which I intuitively hunch. I may be wrong. You were speaking of the slingshot effect, and that term has puzzled me. The only thing that I can see is that you must put energy into a craft until it approaches the velocity of light, and this of course requires more and more energy. The time dilation occurs, and it seems to me that it would be possible to, by moving it 90 degrees to the direction of travel, somehow change this stored energy in its application of direction or sense so that you move out of space/time into time/space with a 90 degrees deflection. Then the energy would be taken out in time/space, and you would re-enter space/time at the end of this energy burst. Am I in any way correct on this? I am RA. You are quite correct as far as your language may take you, and, due to your training, more able than we to express the concept. Our only correction, if you will, would be to suggest that the 90 degrees of which you speak are an angle which may best be understood as a portion of a tesseract. Questioner, thank you. Just a little point that was bothering me, of no real importance. Is there then, from the point of view of an individual who wishes to follow the service to others path, anything of importance other than disciplines of personality, knowledge of self, and strengthening of will? I am RA. This is technique. This is not the heart. Let us examine the heart of evolution. Let us remember that we are all one. This is the great learning/teaching. In this unity lies love. This is a great learn/teaching. In this unity lies light. This is the fundamental teaching of all planes of existence in materialization. Unity, love, light, and joy. This is the heart of evolution of the spirit. The second ranking lessons are learned/taught in meditation and in service. At some point the mind/body/spirit complex is so smoothly activated and balanced by these central thoughts or distortions that the techniques you have mentioned become quite significant. However, the universe, its mystery unbroken, is one. Always begin and end in the creator, not in technique. Questioner, in the previous session you mentioned the light bringers from the octave. Am I to understand that those who provide the light for the graduation are of an octave above the one we experience? Could you tell me more about these light bringers, who they are, etc.? I am RA. This will be the last full query of this working. This octave density of which we have spoken is both omega and alpha, the spiritual mass of the infinite universes becoming one central sun or creator once again. Then is born a new universe, a new infinity, a new logos which incorporates all that the creator has experienced of itself. In this new octave there are also those who wander. We know very little across the boundary of octave except that these beings come to aid our octave in its logos completion. Is there any brief query which you have at this time? Questioner, only is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? I am RA. This instrument has some distortion in the area of the lungs which has been well compensated for by the position of the physical complex. All is well. We leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. The Law of One, Book 3, Session 53. May 25, 1981. I am RA. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, I would first like to ask what is the instrument's condition and then ask 2 questions for her. She would like to know if she can now do 1 exercise period per day, and also is the pain she feels prior to doing a session due to an Orion attack? I am RA. The instrument's condition is as previously stated. In answer to the question of exercise, now that the intensive period is over, this instrument may, if it chooses, exercise 1 period rather than 2. In scanning this instrument's physical complex distortions, we find the current period of exercise at the limit of this instrument's strength. This is well in the long run due to a cumulative building up of the vital energies. In the short run it is wearying to this entity. Thus we suggest the entity be aware of our previous admonitions regarding other aids to appropriate bodily distortions. In answer to the second query we may say that the physical complex difficulties prior to contact with our social memory complex are due to the action of the subconscious will of the instrument. This will is extremely strong and requires the mind/body/spirit complex to reserve all available physical and vital energies for the contact. Thus the discomforts are experienced due to the dramatic distortion towards physical weakness, while this energy is diverted. The entity is, it may be noted, also under psychic attack, and this intensifies pre-existing conditions and is responsible for the cramping and the dizziness as well as mind-complex distortions. Questioner, thank you. I would like to know if, name, may attend one of these sessions in the very near future? I am RA. The mind/body/spirit complex, name, belongs with this group in the spirit and is welcome. You may request that special meditative periods be set aside until the entity sits with this working. We might suggest that a photograph of the one known as name be sent to this entity with his writing upon it indicating love and light. This held while meditating will bring the entity into peaceful harmony with each of you so that there be no extraneous waste of energy while greetings are exchanged between two entities, both of whom have a distortion towards solitude and shyness, as you would call it. The same might be done with a photograph of the entity, name, for the one known as name. Questioner, thank you. During my trip to Laramie, certain things became apparent to me with respect to dissemination of the first book of the Law of One to those who have had experiences with UFOs and other wanderers, and I will have to ask some questions now that I may have to include in Book 1 to eliminate a misunderstanding that I am perceiving as a possibility in Book 1. Therefore, these questions, although for the most part transient, are aimed at eliminating certain distortions with respect to the understanding of the material in Book 1. I hope that I am using the correct approach here. You may not be able to answer some of them, but that's all right. We'll just go on to others then if you can't answer the ones I ask. Can you tell me of the various techniques used by the Service to Others positively oriented Confederation contacts with the people of this planet, the various forms and techniques of making contact? R.A. IMRA. We could. Questioner, would you do this please? R.A. IMRA. The most efficient mode of contact is that which you experience at this space/time. The infringement upon free will is greatly undesired. Therefore, those entities which are wanderers upon your plane of illusion will be the only subjects for the thought projections which make up the so-called close encounters and meetings between positively oriented social memory complexes and wanderers. Questioner, could you give me an example of one of these meetings between a social memory complex and a wanderer as to what the wanderer would experience? R.A. IMRA. One such example of which you are familiar is that of the one known as Morris. Point 1. In this case, the previous contact which other entities in this entity's circle of friends experienced was negatively oriented. However, you will recall that the entity, Morris, was impervious to this contact and could not see, with the physical optical apparatus, this contact. However, the inner voice alerted the one known as Morris to go by itself to another place, and there an entity with the thought form, shape and appearance of the other contact appeared and gazed at this entity, thus awakening in it the desire to seek the truth of this occurrence and of the experiences of its incarnation in general. 1. This refers to case number 1 in Secrets of the UFO by D. T. Elkins with Carla L. Ruckert, Louisville, Kentucky, L/L Research, 1976, pages 10 to 11. The Law of One, Book 3, Session 53. The feeling of being awakened or activated is the goal of this type of contact. The duration and imagery used varies depending upon the subconscious expectations of the wanderer which is experiencing this opportunity for activation. Questioner, in a close encounter by a Confederation type of craft, I am assuming that this close encounter is with a thought form type of craft. Have wanderers within the past few years had close encounters with landed thought form type of craft? R.A. IMRA. This has occurred, although it is much less common than the Orion type of so-called close encounter. We may note that in a universe of unending unity the concept of a close encounter is humorous, for are not all encounters of a nature of self with self? Therefore, how can any encounter be less than very, very close? Questioner, well, talking about this type of encounter of self to self, have any wanderers of a positive polarization ever had a so-called close encounter with the Orion or negatively oriented polarization? R.A. IMRA. This is correct. Questioner, why does this occur? R.A. IMRA. When it occurs, it is quite rare and occurs either due to the Orion entity's lack of perception of the depth of positivity to be encountered, or due to the Orion entity's desire to, shall we say, attempt to remove this positivity from this plane of existence. Orion tactics normally are those which choose the simple distortions of mind which indicate less mental and spiritual complex activity. Questioner, I have become aware of a very large variation in the contact with individuals. Could you give me general examples of the methods used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers they contact? R.A. IMRA. The methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience which has meaning for the entity. Many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you are aware. Questioner, what about the physical examination syndrome? How does that relate to Wanderers and Confederation and Orion contacts? IMRA. The subconscious expectations of entities cause the nature and detail of thought form experience offered by Confederation thought form entities. Thus, if a wanderer expects a physical examination, it will perforce be experienced with as little distortion towards alarm or discomfort as is allowable by the nature of the expectations of the subconscious distortions of the wanderer. Questioner: well, are those who are taken on both Confederation and Orion craft then experiencing a seeming physical examination? IMRA. Your query indicates incorrect thinking. The Orion group uses the physical examination as a means of terrifying the individual and causing it to feel the feelings of an advanced second density being such as a laboratory animal. The sexual experiences of some are a subtype of this experience. The intent is to demonstrate the control of the Orion entities over the Terran inhabitant. The thought form experiences are subjective and, for the most part, do not occur in this density. Questioner: well, we have a large spectrum of entities on Earth with respect to harvestability, both positively oriented and negatively oriented. Would the Orion group target in on the ends of this spectrum, both positively and negatively oriented, for contact with Earth entities? IMRA. This query is somewhat difficult to accurately answer. However, we shall attempt to do so. The most typical approach of Orion entities is to choose what you might call the weaker-minded entity that it might suggest a greater amount of Orion philosophy to be disseminated. Some few Orion entities are called by more highly polarized negative entities of your space/time nexus. In this case, they share information just as we are now doing. However, this is a risk for the Orion entities due to the frequency with which the harvestable negative planetary entities then attempt to bid and order the Orion contact just as these entities bid planetary negative contacts. The resulting struggle for mastery, if lost, is damaging to the polarity of the Orion group. Similarly, a mistaken Orion contact with highly polarized positive entities can wreak havoc with Orion troops unless these crusaders are able to depolarize the entity mistakenly contacted. This occurrence is almost unheard of. Therefore, the Orion group prefers to make physical contact only with the weaker-minded entity. Questioner: then in general we could say that if an individual has a close encounter with a UFO or any other type experience that seems to be UFO-related, he must look to the heart of the encounter and the effect upon him to determine whether it was Orion or Confederation contact. Is this correct? IMRA. This is correct. If there is fear and doom, the contact was quite likely of a negative nature. If the result is hope, friendly feelings, and the awakening of a positive feeling of purposeful service to others, the marks of Confederation contact are evident. Questioner: thank you. I did not wish to create the wrong impression with the material that we are including in Book 1. I may find it necessary to add some of this material. As I say, I know that it is transient, but I believe it is necessary for a full understanding, or, shall I say, a correct approach to the material. I'll ask a few questions here, but if you do not care to answer them, we'll save them. I would like to ask, however, if you can tell me what, for the most part, the Confederation entities look like? IMRA. The fourth density Confederation entity looks variously depending upon the, shall we say, derivation of its physical vehicle. Questioner: do some of them look just like us? Could they pass for Earth people? IMRA. Those of this nature are most often fifth density. Questioner: I assumed that the same answer would apply to the Orion group. Is this correct? IMRA. This is correct. Is there any other query of a brief nature we may answer? Questioner: I apologize for asking many transient questions during this session. I felt it necessary to include some of this material so that those wanderers and others reading the first book of the Law of One would not get the wrong impression with respect to their experiences in contacts. I am sorry for any problems that I might have caused. I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to aid the contact or to aid the instrument? IMRA. The instrument is well. Please guard your alignments carefully. We leave you now, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one, infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the infinite Creator. Adonai.